For more on this, let's bring in Kellyanne Conway, former senior counselor to President Trump and a Fox News contributor. So many have talked about this for at least a couple of decades now, but nobody dared to touch that third rail of politics. But here's what President Biden said that he wants the DNC to do. First will be South Carolina. Second will be Nevada. Third, New Hampshire, which is complaining that it's got a law that says it's got to go first. Fourth would be Georgia. And fifth would be Michigan. Republicans say they're going to stay the same, with Iowa and New Hampshire being first, then South Carolina being third. What do you think of the proposed changes here?
This is a naked, blatant attempt for Joe Biden to make sure he gets reelected, John, plain and simple. Here's a guy who underperformed embarrassingly in Iowa. Pete Buttigieg won Iowa, followed by two socialists, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and then Joe Biden. He struggled in those early races until he got to South Carolina, winning on the back of Jim Clyburn, a very popular congressman, of course, legend in South Carolina. And so he wants to make sure the fix is in early. Now, with all the trouble that we've had with our elections, with all the consternation, frustration, and confusion that voters feel about mail-in ballots and early voting, absentee voting, to do this is just another way, I think, for Joe Biden to ensure that he won't have a strong challenger. The other thing is he's basically telling Iowa, which is totally taken from first in the nation caucus, out of the list of five. He's calling them a racist state. Same with New Hampshire. And then you see the African-American woman who has an official position in New Hampshire saying, excuse me, not so fast. Yeah. We're not going to allow this to happen. Also, Maggie Hassan, Democrat senator of New Hampshire, Catherine Cortez Masto, Democratic senator from Nevada, today both issued stinging, strong statements against Joe Biden's purported plan. They vote with him 98% of the time. Who would have thought that the 2% in which they disagree is not the Inflation Reduction Act or the withdrawal from Afghanistan or the fact that he hasn't visited the border at all. He's been to Delaware 174 times, the border zero. They disagree with him on moving the primary calendar. So I think this is one last thing. Joe Biden's very worried about having a primary in his party the way Jimmy Carter did, the way George Bush 41 did. And this is another way to try to stave that off. He's not welcome on the campaign trail, even today in Georgia. He's trying to limit his appearances on the campaign trail by having a calendar that's in his favor.
You know, I've always thought that Hawaii would be the perfect place to kick off the primary process in the dead of winter, but nobody's ever listened to me on that. The fact, though, that they also want to get rid of the caucuses is interesting, because for decades, this Iowa caucus, where people gather in living rooms and salons across the state, and they talk about politics and they talk about who they want, and they gather in small groups supporting various candidates. I mean, a lot of people say, well, that excludes a lot of people from the process because you've got to be a card-carrying member of the party that you're supporting in the caucuses. But it was a really interesting exercise in public democracy.
It is. And John, you've covered them. I've covered them. I've participated in them as a strategist, as campaign manager. And there's really no substitute for caucuses when you talk about grassroots, true democratization of our voting system. I think they're important also because they're self-selected, certainly, but anybody can join. And you can decide that you want to vote in the Democratic primary caucus, or the Republican caucus. And now we're getting away from debates. We have people that aren't even debating or debating after hundreds of thousands of votes that have been cast. That's a core, essential part of democracy, getting away from caucuses. And just one more thing, John. The caucuses, the debates, they give all of the voters a free of charge instant opportunity to poke the fruit, to look at all of the candidates together and suss out who they want to have. But again, I think Joe Biden, they're trying to put the fix in now. They know he can't run necessarily on his quote accomplishments. They know he can't run as the old, rich, liberal white guy in Washington who's been there for over 5 decades as the leader of the party of youth, energy, and the future and diversity. So they're really trying to get him not so much in the basement, but keep him in the White House. This is a guy who can't go to Georgia today to help Raphael Warnock get that 51st seat. He's actually going to Boston, just the way they sent him to Union Station. Union Station is not a swing district. It's not a blue or red state. It's a train depot. And that's where they sent the president of the United States when you would have wanted the president to be out there campaigning. They're trying to limit Joe Biden's appearances for Joe Biden in 2024. It's really remarkable. Yeah.
You know, back to the caucuses in the primaries. I remember going from a very chilly New Hampshire in 2016 to South Carolina for the third contest, thinking, oh, great, it's going to be nice and warm. It was colder in South Carolina than it was in New Hampshire. Too. That's why I think Hawaii would be the perfect place to start. Kellyanne, great to see you. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.